Cassie.
Hey, Caitlin.
This is PNW Haunts and Homicides. This is the second installment of our Weyerhaeuser case.
Your case series.
My case series. Okay.
Are you creepy people ready?
They're not ready. I can tell you, as someone who knows the content of this episode, they are not ready.
Oh.
Okay, but let's start it off easy, okay? Let's recap a bit here.
Okay.
George was kidnapped near his home in Tacoma and held in the wilderness of Issaquah, just east of Seattle. Though George thought he was in Aberdeen.
Aberdeen. I love that place.
Because that's what Harmon Whaley told him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So they intentionally misled him.
Like, why would they even tell him where he's at?
He didn't even see which direction they were going. He's like hidden in the backseat under a blanket, but they felt the need to misdirect him. He's 9.
Yeah, that's
whatever
weird to me.
Well, within a very short time, George was moved from the original holding location, which I didn't go into this, but it was basically a hole that they dug in the ground.
No.
Gross. So he was moved from that original holding location in the Issaquah wilderness to another spot about 20 miles away in a similarly wooded area. Basically, the kidnappers were spooked about being caught in the intervening days prior to collecting the ransom, which, I mean, that tracks. Yeah. The search for the two of them, and of course George, was extremely exhaustive. Just about all segments of society were keeping their eyes and ears at the ready, though, of course, not necessarily for all the same reasons. Law enforcement, reporters, and average citizens were all on high alert.
I can't even, they were.
Yeah. Yeah. So these guys didn't want to take any chances, although I'd argue that moving George could have been pretty risky too.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah. Though it wouldn't be the last time. I know.
They moved him more?
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Oh my goodness.
George would actually be moved yet again away from the second wooded area in Issaquah, but this time with Margaret in tow. So up to this point, she has no idea they have kidnapped this child.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. No.
I forgot about that part.
Yep. Margaret is in for a surprise.
And she's like, oh, that was that family I mentioned from the newspaper. Weird.
Yeah. So this move seemed particularly risky and misguided, which, spoiler for this group, it would prove to be a damning decision in more ways than one. They set out heading east, stopped in Odessa briefly. This was a small town halfway in between Ellensburg and Spokane. Then back on the road toward Spokane, passing through Elk, Washington. Now just remember, we've been traveling all up and down the interstate.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the way, George had asked if he could be let out of the vehicle's trunk.
Oh.
Though Margaret never saw the boy through any aspect of the commission of the crime, she was undoubtedly made aware at that point of the presence of a captive.
Oh my God.
She literally hears somebody in the trunk saying, hey, can I get out now?
Oh my God.
Because George had no idea she was there either.
What would you do? Like, you literally hear someone screaming in the trunk.
Well, and he
not
didn't
screaming,
scream. He was very
like,
calm. But
talking.
Still, you had no idea there was someone in the trunk. So
also, how was he so calm? Oh
I mean,
my God.
they've been telling him they won't hurt him. They're feeding him, otherwise keeping him safe. So, no doubt the threats that Mahan issued following this discovery in order to keep her quiet probably struck a hearty fear into her, and all but assured her silence, should she ever question faltering in obedience to her husband Harmon, as this was, of course, required by her Mormon faith.
I will obey.
Yes.
Funny story. We can cut this out. I had to say those in my wedding vows.
Oh, no.
That I will, obey my husband. And the whole time I was like, fuck, I will. Not gonna happen.
Please leave that in. Margaret did, however, note that they drove through 2 small towns in Idaho. Finally, they landed near Newman Lake, which is located just inside the Washington border. Though, again, when asked by George, Harmon lied about their location, saying they were in Oregon.
Huh.
Yeah. So I'm not so sure that George had any real expectation that he would be told the truth, but he did try to gather information about his surroundings, even if it was just from his captors.
That's pretty smart of him to like think
It
of
is.
that.
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot of things that George did that I'm like, wow, just super impressed. I wish I could tell you they just stayed put at this point, but bizarrely, they moved George yet again.
Jeez.
These dudes love their road trips. What can I say? So this time, from the Newman Lake location, they returned to a rental house in Spokane that Mahan and the Whaleys had actually previously stayed at. I mean, I'm really trying to edit this down for length and to try to make it as easy to follow as possible, but they were all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why would they go to a place that they've been to before? Like, that doesn't seem
Oh, we'll get there.
very smart.
It doesn't. No. Margaret went to rent the property located at 1509 West 11th Street in Spokane. She rented it out under a different false name, Lyle Cole. So that was as Mahan instructed her, and it all went off without a hitch.
Did she like call and be like, "Hi, I'm Lyle"?
No. She was just supposed to be the wife of Lyle, showing up to sign the paperwork.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got you.
just doing her husband's bidding like a good little lady.
Good little obeyer.
Yeah, I just... All right. Well, we have to try to be nice to Margaret.
I'm sorry, Margaret.
May 29th of 1935 was the deadline set by the kidnappers in the initial ransom note. George had been held 5 days by this point. True to their word, the kidnappers made contact to arrange the drop for the ransom money and the release of George. The note stated that George would not be released for at least 30 hours following the full payment of the ransom. Wow. Which I would be like, no thank you, I would like to see my child at once.
Immediately after this giant sum of money I'm handing you.
Immediately, if not sooner.
Oh my God.
George's father, J.P., meticulously followed the steps and instructions as provided by the kidnappers. But at the last stop on the bizarre breadcrumb trail, the final note hadn't been properly secured for him to retrieve. What? You guys, George's dad, J.P., oh my God, this is so sad. The poor man spent 2 hours desperately searching the area, but to no avail. Eventually, JP returned to the hotel he was staying at. Well, okay, actually. Eventually, JP returned to a hotel where his friends were waiting, though not the hotel that he had booked for himself. He had a fitful night's sleep as he wondered if he'd be given another chance to rescue his own child.
So because of their mistake.
Yes. So these morons didn't secure the note so that it would still be there when he got there. I don't know if it just blew away in the wind or what, but seriously, next level dumb.
Oh my God.
Meanwhile, during a time when horrifying visions must have been dancing through his whole family's heads, especially his father's at this point, George was in a small home in Spokane with Harmon Whaley. By both of their later accounts, they actually had a pleasant stay and seemed to have bonded somewhat. Though it doesn't seem that it was a classic Stockholm Syndrome kind of way. So that's good, because obviously that's not healthy.
No.
Harmon read from the newspaper, cooked for the two of them, even chatting contentedly a fair bit.
Interesting.
I know, kind of weird, but all right. Huh. I like that journey for you, George. Court documents revealed a conversation Harmon purported to have taken place during this time. He stated he'd told George, "Boy, if we hadn't actually taken the ransom money, I'd sure like to keep you." To which George reportedly replied, "And I almost wouldn't mind staying."
Oh my God, he's the most polite.
I think that was survival mode, but yeah, also very polite.
Yeah, because I would have been like, fuck you. Like, you literally kidnapped me.
I don't know. I think you think that until you're actually being held hostage. And then all of a sudden you're very agreeable.
Oh, totally.
So, which, if it's true, though, it means George was a very smart cookie to play it cool, calm, and collected with the one kidnapper that seemed really pretty level-headed. Not a bad strategy coming from a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
Following the initial unsuccessful attempt of the ransom drop, George's father received a call around 11:30 a.m. following up, and of course, questioning why hadn't he completed the task as instructed.
Huh. What? Yeah, why?
Yeah, why?
What happened?
Importantly, JP was also granted a second chance. At 9:45 p.m. on May 30th of 1935, JP Weyerhaeuser received another call from the kidnapper, doling out his first set of instructions. He was to proceed to East Madison Street and enter the gate on the right side to receive further directions.
What if he went to the left side? What would happen?
That's so funny. I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm like, I'm just going to be contrarian here. What if?
It's just like a pit with spikes.
Oh, no.
You chose the wrong door.
Oh, my gosh. It's funny you say that, though, actually, because my next sentence, it was briefly discussed perhaps sending someone outside the Weyerhaeuser family in his stead in case the kidnappers had any bright ideas of nabbing him as well. So
yeah, that would have been that. Didn't think of that, but
yeah,
they could have.
You never know. They're thinking, okay, if we can get $200,000 for George, how much can we get for both of them?
Yeah. Eesh.
Yikes. After the previous night's failure, JP just simply wasn't willing to risk upsetting the kidnappers by deviating from their plans in any way.
Yeah.
Super get that. That night, he was going to get it right. Again, he meticulously followed their orders, with the money being delivered as expected. Now, he had only to wait to determine the fate of his son. Just the 30 longest hours of your life.
Oh. And then, like, after the first time, too, like, not being able to find the instructions, like, what must be going through your mind?
Nothing good. Nothing good. George's captors, shockingly, hadn't given much thought to how they would go about releasing him once the ransom was paid by the Weyerhaeuser family. I know, shocking, right?
Yeah.
They seem like they would have really thought this through.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely their style.
They obviously don't care about George, though. They just want their money and like, oh yeah, we have to release him. I forgot.
Cassie, you are a mind reader and you're not going to like this next part.
Oh, great.
As they considered their options upon receiving the ransom money, they concluded George was not their problem once they let him loose. Real nice guys. So George was taken back to Issaquah, a location where he had previously been held captive for those keeping track, and he was instructed to wait for his father to come get him. Only the kidnappers hadn't contacted his father or any of the rest of the Weyerhaeuser family to let them know where he was.
Why?
I will tell you why. They figured that George would stay put for a short while, eventually get fed up with waiting, and start walking out of the woods towards some sort of assistance and civilization.
Or get freaking eaten by a bear or something.
He's literally miles from the nearest anything.
And he's little.
Yeah.
His little legs can't walk that far.
Well, turns out they can. Okay, so they were correct, unfortunately, but like, how fucked up is that? They told him, oh, George, your dad is coming, and George was, I guess, waiting for like all of maybe an hour or two, and then he was like, I don't think my dad's coming.
Yeah.
He's the most smartest.
I probably would have waited way longer than that before I figured it out.
I'm not proud of how long I would have been likely to wait. George made his way to a nearby farmhouse. Okay, nearby is relative since it was actually several miles away. The first door he knocked on went unanswered as the inhabitant was still asleep.
How can you sleep through knocking? Like, do you not have dogs?
Yeah, that's a good question. Good question. I guess this guy didn't. So, thankfully, he had better luck at the Boniface family home. I hope I'm saying that right. I mean, the way that it's spelled, I can't imagine it being any other way. As they answered the door, his first words could not be more precious.
Oh.
I'm George Weyerhaeuser. Will you take me back to my folks?
Oh my God.
I know. Just let that sink in for a second.
The cool that this boy had. Like, I feel like if I'd been kidnapped and someone answered the door, I would just lose it.
Would you not be crying?
I would just freak out and scream and lose it, and they would probably think I'm crazy.
I know.
But he had this, like, just easygoing, cool, like, everything's gonna be
literally,
okay.
this dude, cool as a cucumber, okay?
My gosh.
The wife, Elena, scrambled to get him some food while her husband, Louis, readied for the journey. She also sent him off with a pair of their daughter's shoes to wear because obviously the poor boy's feet were soaking wet.
Aww.
I just picture him getting out of the pit and immediately it starts to rain. And he's been walking for many, many miles. This poor little boy. The farmer needed to stop for gas in Renton, and George, being the precious and thoughtful little boy that he was, he told Mr. Boniface that he would pay.
No.
Literally. Okay, this is where it gets, it's too much. I can't. It's too precious for words. I'm going to try though.
Okay.
He said that he would pay, offering up the single dollar bill the kidnappers had given him when they released him.
Oh my God. They gave him $1?
I know.
Like, we just got $200,000 for kidnapping you, and we're gonna leave you alone in the woods. Here's a fucking $1.
Well, $1 was a lot of money back then, but still.
But
I honestly was surprised they gave him any money at all, but that's neither here nor there.
I wonder whose idea it was.
I don't know.
To give him $1. Do you think it was Margaret?
I don't know.
They probably wouldn't have listened to her.
Yes, definitely no. But, well, okay, we'll get there.
I'm trying to see the good in her, and it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely stumbled on something where maybe she should have, I don't know, just offered assistance, but it's a tough one.
Yeah.
Margaret's not as bad as the other two. Okay, we're going to get there. When the gas station attendant was made aware of who George was and how he'd come by the bill, he said, "I'm going to frame that bill and keep it."
He kept it?
I don't know if he actually did or not, but that's what he told him.
Wow.
Isn't that cute?
That's interesting. That wouldn't be my first thought.
Yeah, it's not like when you own a business and you like frame your first dollar.
Yeah.
He's like, "This is from a famous kidnapping." Like, it's kind of weird.
It's kind of an interesting thought. I wonder if he like tried to sell it at one point.
It wasn't even part of the ransom money because there weren't singles.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I don't know. Just an interesting aside.
It's weird. Yeah.
Here's something else weird. As there had not been a telephone at the first gas station, because 1930s, Mr. Boniface went on to another that the attendant had directed him would have a phone so that they could call the Weyerhaeuser family. This is, of course, before the proliferation of phones in every home across the nation. Mm-hmm. Tons of people didn't have phones. They didn't have one in their home. That's why... Aside from needing gas, that's part of why he stopped, so that he could call the family.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, despite having a dedicated line, actually multiple lines set up by law enforcement for any calls related to George at the ready, Mr. Boniface had been unable to get through. Super bizarre.
They didn't have an answering machine?
Oh my God. Apparently the line failed at what was seemingly one of the worst possible times. What are the chances?
It failed?
Yeah. The call just didn't go through. It was interesting. The person that took the call, like they said no one was there, but Mr. Boniface, it sounded like just heard ringing and like didn't actually get a person. So I don't know what happened.
Interesting.
It's way above my pay grade.
Where are those wires going?
Yeah. No one knows. So a few short minutes later, Mr. Boniface called the Tacoma Police Department. By 7 a.m., word was already getting out about George having been found alive and well, if just slightly worse for the wear in some respects. It's unclear exactly how reporters and their respective publishers learned of the astonishing news so quickly. There was some speculation that a tip may have been handed off directly to a reporter, specifically John Dreher, a sportsing writer. Yeah, are you familiar with the sportsing? From the Seattle Times, by an actual police officer that had either taken or overheard the call. Though none of the host of rumors on this front seem to have ever been really fully substantiated, so it's honestly, it remains unclear how reporters first learned that George had been found. In any case, the publisher of the Tacoma Daily Ledger told his team of reporters that the boy had been found near Issaquah in King County.
I bet it was the gas station guy.
It seems like that's a pretty safe bet.
He wanted to keep the dollar.
Honestly,
the doll hair.
The doll hair. There were honestly a couple of theories around that, but that's not, I promise you, that's not the wildest part about this. I can't.
Okay.
The previously mentioned reporter Dreher decides he has to try to get his hooks into this story somehow. Apparently, he and his driver took off towards the Weyerhaeuser family home in Tacoma. Though reportedly the vehicle began to sputter and they stopped for gas at, wouldn't you know it, the exact time that they just happened to pass by that farmer and George on the road. So weird.
Interesting.
Like, what a crazy coincidence. In an effort to get the story, they nearly ran them off the road.
Jesus. Calm down, sir.
No, you guys, you're setting a terrible precedent. What about Princess Di?
Oh, no.
I know.
Yeah.
So sad. Oh, parts of the story like this are just too fantastical, and I don't even know which things specifically to point to as lies or the decoy facts. It's a bit of a mindfuck, honestly, but I want so badly to know what the real story is. Like, how did the press get wind of this? But like the heart of the ocean, it's lost. Oh, I know. Oh. Really topical references here.
It's been 84 years.
Oh, God. Yeah, since that movie was released.
That's my favorite movie, okay?
It's one of my faves, too.
Jack! I'll never let go.
He's like, please let go. I'm ready. Now, depending on who you believe, either Dreher strongly implied that he was a law enforcement officer of some sort.
Liar.
Probably. Or otherwise associated with the case.
No.
Or the farmer just assumed as much and did not have a single follow-up question. He just took $5 that was offered by Dreher and went on his way.
Oh my goodness. I mean...
Which, that doesn't really seem like... Okay, if this man was going to go to the trouble of driving George all the way back home, do you think he's just, like, going to be like, oh, this guy wants to take this kid who's already been kidnapped? No, this guy had to have implied, like, oh, I'm with the police.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet he had a fake badge.
Yeah. Dreher, you're full of shit. I feel like it seems pretty unlikely to be the latter, as I said. Although I can confirm the farmer was given the $5 for sure.
At least he got compensated.
Yeah. Either way, George ends up riding the rest of the way home with the reporter, covertly interviewing him in the back of the car.
He was not.
Yeah, some serious Nightcrawler vibes.
This little boy had just been rescued from being kidnapped and you're fucking, like, questioning him for your own story.
So I know this was a huge story and therefore a really huge opportunity for someone like him, especially when he was a sports writer. But that just kind of feels a little icky.
It's so icky.
Kind of gross.
I don't like that.
Yeah. Well, Dreher rushed off to write his story based on the conversation with George and his copious notes. However, he is quickly confronted by the DOJ, Department of Justice, The journalist actually was thinking at that point that maybe he's about to be arrested for obstruction of justice.
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was kind of rooting for that for a minute. Honestly, I wouldn't have likely lost any sleep over it on his behalf. But lucky for him, since he had the article of a lifetime and a very unforgiving timeline, the federal agents just wanted the blanket that George had been wrapped in on his ride home.
Aww.
They were pretty much just like, he was a little bit worried that they were going to hold him up. He's like, oh, my God, you guys. Okay, I know you're like investigating and stuff, but I have to write this article, okay?
What a selfish
fucker.
God.
Well, when it was determined that it had been left in the Weyerhaeuser family garage upon arrival of the reporter and his precious cargo, the feds let him get down to the business of writing up George's story. How very TMZ.
Yeah, for real.
So let it be known, I still think it turned out a bit of a fluff piece, though, personally. Dreher having reported to the readers, no doubt hanging on his every word about George as a real boy. I'm not kidding, exclamation mark and all.
A real boy? Mm-hmm. What did you think he was, Pinocchio?
I know, it's the dumbest thing.
Jesus.
His article goes on wondering who couldn't love him, further describing George as the world's masterpiece of common sense, good breeding, and wholesomeness. Which, oh, I have a lot to say here. As true as it might have been, reacting in modern times to that statement, I do kind of want to hurl.
Yeah.
Good breeding?
I'm like, I don't disagree, but yeah, the good breeding part makes me angry.
First of all, it is super elitist and classist in, I mean, pretty much any connotation I've ever read it in. And really, it was meant to be even back then.
Yeah.
Furthermore, George is not a dog that we have bred to have certain traits. Pretty sure that is, and even that's maybe only the passable application of that phrase these days.
Yeah.
I
mean, the only reason he is such a good kid is because his parents raised him to be like normal in public schools. They didn't breed him to be a good kid. Exactly. They raised him. They raised him right.
Oh, it's gross. It's gross. It's gross. Okay. So I probably would have let that slide given the times if the reporter hadn't already been giving me pure garbage vibes.
Yeah.
But you know who doesn't give me garbage vibes?
Who? Me?
Also you. But yes, this next podcast, we've got another promo roll that we are really excited to share today.
Hi, I'm Carol.
And I'm Holly, and we are the hosts of Fireside Phantoms.
On our podcast, we will delight in telling you stories of the strange, twisted, dark, and foreboding.
Creepy, crawly things slinking up your leg.
Ghostly hands reaching out from beyond the grave.
And we will ask hard-hitting questions like,
can Slender Man fit into my skinny jeans?
Who is Wrinkles the Clown? And how can you make your child's next birthday party special?
Why shouldn't we invite the black-eyed kids in?
What really is going on at your creepy neighbor's house? And is it okay to peek inside?
And many, many more.
So join us and our forest friends
as we gather around a warm and crackling campfire. This is Fireside Phantoms.
You guys, we're back. Hi. Okay. So I want to let you know this part of the episode appears slightly out of sequence compared to the book, but I just made a choice to try to keep the story moving along like a timeline.
Okay.
It makes sense as you're reading it the way that Brian presents it, but just because you don't have like a physical book in front of you, I'm just trying to keep it a little bit more linear. So George faces the press post-kidnapping.
Oh.
It was Saturday, June 1st of 1935, mere hours following his safe return to the family's Tacoma home, when he stood in their yard as photographers snapped his photo and reporters furiously took notes.
Oh my gosh. Like,
Crazy.
He already went through it. Like,
leave Brittany alone.
I know, exactly. Speaking of Brittany, go Brittany.
Yeah.
She's
seriously.
fucking free. Okay, go.
Well, almost.
Semi-free. Free from her father. Okay.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Fight the good fight. All right. All I can think is how overwhelming the sight of all of those flashbulbs and excited people must have been.
Yeah.
I couldn't handle that shit after what has to have been one of the longest and most stressful weeks of his life, certainly up to that point.
I couldn't handle it after a good day.
Like, yeah.
There's no way.
Still, as exploitative as that whole experience seems, one reporter caught the sweetest moment with George shortly after. Aww. You guys, get ready to pick your hearts up off the floor. They're going to be absolute mush.
George.
Oh, George. He was sitting on the porch with his beloved spaniel, Bobby.
Oh,
petting him as the dog wagged his tail. Love it so far. Precious. He also had his pet mice engaged in a very important conversation about his absence.
Oh.
He apologized for his unexpected absence.
Stop.
And wondered aloud if they had been good.
Oh my God, stop.
As he pet the mice, he said, "So sorry I had to leave you, but I couldn't help it."
Oh my God.
You guys, this is so sweet. I am a literal melted pile of caramel goo.
Oh my God. That is the sweetest thing I've ever heard.
It's really cute, right?
He couldn't help
it. I'm not crying, you're crying.
Stop.
Shut up. All right, now back to our true crime business here, folks. This is an especially sweet episode in so many respects, but that doesn't mean we won't get to as many of the facts of the case as possible. We know what you came for.
Cold hard facts.
Yeah, cold hard facts. Yeah, and also weird, definitely not topical references.
Yes.
The heart of the ocean.
Oh.
Okay. So now that George is home safe at this point in our story, we really have to talk about the search for the kidnappers.
Yeah, we do. Those fuckers.
The FBI set in motion, and I quote, "the most elaborate man-hunting machinery ever assembled in the West."
Oh, snap.
Right? Seattle police and detectives watched the highways and exits from the city because it was believed the kidnappers might be rolling through to escape. Cannot imagine what traffic was like in Seattle that day. Probably worse than modern times. So the waterfront of Lake Washington was also being watched, both ferry and private docks. They were not messing around. 21 agents each from Tacoma and Seattle were working on the case.
Wow.
Which was, I think, according to the book, about 7% of their total workforce at that point.
Wait, is
Crazy.
that impressive or not impressive? 7%?
I mean, 7%? Like, they're literally spending almost, rounding up, that's almost 10% on this one case.
Okay.
Like, in the whole country. We're using almost 10% of all of our resources.
Okay, in the whole country.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I thought you were saying in just Washington.
Oh, no.
I was
no.
Is that impressive? I can't tell.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
it's bonkers.
Yeah.
The Department of Justice was willing to stop at nothing, doing flyovers for at least a week with a telescope-equipped plane.
That's like a lot.
It's kind of a lot. They're kind of doing the most.
Yeah.
The FBI investigated 200 suspects, with at least one leader of an organized crime group topping their list. Nearly every possible lead was being followed. And, even the crackpot ones.
Aliens.
Yeah. The time-consuming affair of sifting through the tips and information that was pouring in from various sources was likened to the process of panning for gold.
Ooh.
An interesting factoid here for you creepy people. Through all of the Herculean efforts, the typewriter that was used to draft the ransom note would still never be located by authorities. Later, it would be discovered that it was disposed of at Lake Washington.
Huh.
So remember, they're trolling the ferry docks and everything, but they never found it.
Huh.
Weird.
Interesting.
I mean, if you throw it in a lake, like, I mean, what are they going to do? Drag the lake they don't really need it, I think. I think they were able to make their case.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you'll see.
I'm like, yeah. And then like, I don't know yet.
So what does one do when you're searching for an unknown kidnapper who has managed to evade justice thus far? Well, as luck would have it, they did have thousands of small potential clues in the form of $5, $10, and $20 bills.
Oh, the bill.
So they followed the money.
Oh.
The FBI previously had some success in this area in the Lindbergh baby kidnapping.
Oh.
They were able to track down the man responsible because of the strategy that was devised. Thus, this became standard operating procedure for the FBI. It was no small task, though. So, remember how it's the 1930s and they didn't have computers or email?
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
They didn't.
They super didn't. So getting the serial numbers out so that the bills could be tracked as they were passed was kind of a beastly task.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI knew, though, that more often than not, it would pay off in spades. This is because tracking the serial numbers of bills associated with a ransom payment would force the kidnappers to either spend the money quickly, that is, before a list of the serial numbers could be widely circulated, or they would have to launder said bills.
Ooh, they got clean it.
Exactly. So that's why, like, with a lot of these high-profile kidnappings, they kind of assumed that it was organized crime behind it because they had the resources to try to launder the money. Because Georgia's kidnappers had asked for small bills exclusively, compiling the list of serial numbers would be a decidedly daunting task.
Yeah.
Ew. We're going to go straight from the book on this now. Thanks, Brian. And I quote, compiling the list of serial numbers was a monumental task. It took approximately, take a deep breath here, 4,242 man-hours. The first typewritten list consisted of 333 separate pages.
Oh my goodness.
So our good friend Brian goes on to explain that 2 bills were discovered to be missing from the list. So they spent all that time, and there were 2 bills that they accidentally left off. A $20 bill and a $5 bill, which seriously pissed off Hoover, and roughly 60 hours were spent identifying and correcting the error.
For 2 bills.
Yes.
Oh my God.
But, I mean, they were making books with the complete list of serial numbers for tellers and cashiers to reference.
So wait, they had to get these books to whoever's going to be getting bills.
They're distributing them all over the Pacific Northwest.
And then those people would have to go through and look at those and try to see if any of the bills, like, were they really
all of this is done by hand.
Oh my God.
Okay, so yes, and we will get to it. Oh. It's unfathomable. A whopping 25,000 copies were made and sent out in waves beginning on June 3rd. George got home Saturday. Monday, June 3rd, they start pushing these books out.
Holy shit.
Luckily, somehow the version that was eventually shipped out was actually whittled down to 55 pages.
Okay. Wow.
Seems measly in comparison, but wowzers. I am super glad they were not doing things in this manner by the time I became a teller.
Oh my God.
Various authorities all over the Pacific Northwest faced an overwhelming torrent of tips related to various bills, but none proved to be fruitful right away. Still, the FBI remained sanguine as they recalled that in the Lindbergh case, ransom bills hadn't made an appearance and been identified in regular circulation until months after the crime had occurred. Meanwhile, the kidnappers were busying themselves with evading capture, like you do. Harmon told Margaret that he would be sending 2 suitcases with their portion of the ransom money to her grandmother's home in Ogden.
Oh, poor grandma.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Ooh, yeah, I don't think grandma would like that. However, he insisted on sending her with an unusually heavy suitcase as she traveled to that same destination. I wonder why it was so heavy.
What's in there?
It's weird. The plan was for them to travel separately and meet in Ogden, with Harmon not far behind, actually much closer than she would have suspected.
Ooh.
He actually trailed her ass to make sure she did as instructed for a really good portion of that trip.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
Yeah. There's some creepy stuff. So, I don't know, guys. Do you think he maybe just had Margaret mule it after all?
Yeah.
This line should seal the deal for you. Harmon said to Margaret before they parted ways, "And hun, that suitcase is expensive. Don't lose it."
Oh my God. Did she know?
She claims to have not known that was the ransom money. She wasn't involved in the planning of this kidnapping. She only became aware that they had a captive once George had already been missing for a couple of days. And I mean, at that point, the other kidnapper, Mahan, is threatening her, like, if she steps 1/4 of a toe out of line. So,
yeah.
I mean, I feel bad for her because that's a hell of a position. Mahan told her that if she tried to, deviate from any of the plans, if she tried to turn them in, he was going to kill her husband, the boy, and he would come and track her down and kill her. So, I mean, should she have probably tried to do some things differently? Yeah, well, I'll let you guys decide once you hear the rest of the case. But
yeah. I don't know that she could have done anything differently, but yeah, I'm just wondering if she knew.
Wait for it, because there might be some things. Yeah. Leave yourself some room. So the couple would drive Mahan down by the airport. Not to the airport. By it.
Okay.
He was apparently going to catch a freight train because he liked to travel with class. So once in Ogden, the couple traveled onward to Salt Lake City, where Margaret proceeded to pass hot bills, a.k.a. the ransom money.
Hot bills.
Yeah, hot bills. Well, kind of like they were just any old bills.
Uh-oh.
As I'm sure you can imagine, this didn't end up working out that great.
No.
A large portion of the money, Harmon decided to bury in an area near Immigration Canyon.
He buried it?
So 1930s.
That totally reminds me of Fargo.
Yeah. Oh my God, you guys, if you think that's funny, how the couple was caught in the end is nothing short of full-fledged hilarity. And also kind of sad.
Aww.
So Margaret goes to buy her father a birthday present, and we'll try to keep this short, but it's just so bizarre. Truly a situation where real life is stranger than fiction when it's all said and done. She lands on the idea of buying him a cigarette case, which I found this kind of surprising because I didn't think a Mormon man would have been a smoker.
Yeah, I don't know the rules back then, but...
Yeah. But I digress. The cigarette case only cost 20 cents, but she apparently whipped out a $5 bill, which already raised one red flag for the cashier, so they went and took that and checked it against the list of serial numbers. When it appeared to have matched, the authorities were alerted and Margaret was arrested.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
At the store or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ooh, that was quick.
Yeah, but you know what? This is there's so much. Meanwhile, Harmon was waiting for her, totally unaware she'd been caught. The funny thing about this particular $5 bill is that it was one of the ransom bills she had previously spent and then was issued as change for another purchase. She spent this $5 bill, made another purchase, was issued that same bill as change.
What?
I don't know, Margaret. You seem sort of hapless, girl.
That's weird.
Yeah. I mean, all right. Well, my advice would have been to, I don't know, maybe not be passing so much of the ransom money around willy-nilly.
Yeah. And obviously at one place. If she got it back for change?
She had been to several places where she spent ransom money, but yes, she made more than one purchase at the same establishment, and that's how she ended up getting passed back the hot bill.
Weird.
Which it turns out was the hottest bill.
I'm almost wondering, do you think she did it on purpose to get them caught? Or you don't think she was thinking that way?
Margaret, No, Margaret's just not that clever.
And
she's just far too obedient to her husband, honestly.
Try.
Yeah, you're like, I want to redeem Margaret. Well,
it just seems like something you would do purposefully to get caught.
Sure does. It's almost too dumb to be real, right?
Right.
So the amount of hot bills she had passed or given to others, such as a girlhood friend, along with what remained in her wallet, pretty much sealed her fate, I think. I'm sure anyone could end up with a single hot bill from the ransom money, but damn, Margaret, they could definitely link you to a few by the end of this. Harmon was arrested at their residence a short while later without incident. So, I mean, he's waiting for her outside the mall, and he's like, she's taking forever. I'm just going to go home.
I was just going to say, did he just leave her ass at the mall?
I know. Can you imagine? I know. I mean, you literally can't make this shit up.
Did he even go inside to look for her? He was just
he did.
Nah.
Yeah, he went and looked for her in a couple of different stores.
Still, though.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. All right. After learning of the arrest of both Whaleys in Salt Lake City, Mahan makes a run for it in earnest. Well, sort of. Let's just say, if you thought Margaret did some dumb stuff and it worked out, just like Murphy's Law said it would, be forewarned. Mahan's story isn't going to be much better.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Oh my God, you guys, he's like the dumbest criminal ever. they just did so much wrong.
Someone's got to be the first, right?
Oh my God. Oh, it's so bad.
For other criminals to learn from.
I guess.
They're like those people that they put up the dumb sign of the thing that's obvious that you're not supposed to do.
And they're like, oh, I didn't see the sign.
Why is there a sign? Who would ever do that?
No, they're like the Three Stooges. It's so bad. It's so bad. I had to edit out some of the stuff that was just like it was comical. And some of it had to do with crime, but I was like, all right, we got to edit.
Definitely got to read the book.
You have to. You're gonna Don't do it on a full bladder. You might pee your pants.
Oh, man.
While he was running for the hills, the FBI recovered the money that Harmon had hidden under his direction. Mahan booked it to Butte, Montana, in his new V8 Ford.
He bought this new car with the money? Okay.
Yeah, you're not seeing any red flags, right? Isn't that like that's like the one thing they tell you not to do?
Immediately, don't make a huge purchase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also, like, there's usually paperwork that follows the trail of the vehicle. Huh. It's funny you should say that.
Interesting.
Now, when he gets there, he is, nearly immediately recognized by a police officer who had no idea he was the kidnapper. He was the only one that remained free, but this police officer had arrested him before. And when Mahan sees him, he immediately runs.
Oh my God. That's not suspicious.
I know, right? So the officer gives chase. Mahan has a slight lead on him as he hops a fence and narrowly avoids the dog in that yard. Mm-hmm. I'm picturing the dog from like The Sandlot.
Aww.
Yeah.
What was that dog's name? Hercules?
Yeah. All right. Now, okay, remember you guys, nobody dies. Now the police officer has two choices. He can shoot the dog so he can catch Mahan.
No.
Otherwise, he'll surely lose him, or he can let him go.
That's not a choice.
Thankfully, he decided on the latter. I would have been really hard-pressed to include this part of the story if it had gone differently.
You can't just shoot an innocent dog.
Well, so that's what he did the math in his head, and he's like, yeah, I've arrested this guy before. He ran right away when he saw me, but, like, I don't have anything on him. So I'm not, like, you know, if he had known that he was a kidnapper at that point, Fido would have been in trouble, I think. But
Pops.
I know. Fortunately for the officer, he did make an important discovery in Mahan's abandoned vehicle. Ransom money. $15,155 of it.
Interesting.
So while Mahan got lucky that day, so did law enforcement, because they successfully identified another party associated with the kidnapping. Following this discovery, the newly established Montana Highway Patrol engaged in the greatest search the state had seen at that point.
Dang.
Yeah.
Did they even suspect that there was a third person involved?
I think that they did.
Okay.
Some of this, it's a little bit hard to follow because there were so many wild theories. They also thought that Mahan must have had another woman involved. They were just convinced that there were more women involved.
I wonder why.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't altogether like totally off base because it was fairly common for a lot of the organized crime groups to use women because they thought, oh, nobody's going to like think anything of this woman, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because sexism. But Mahan's vehicle yielded clues beyond the ransom money, though. There was ink and a device that was believed to be used to alter serial numbers on bills.
Oh.
There would also be fingerprints. So, guys, this, I think, leaves us at a really great stopping point for the week. Don't you think?
I'm, like, leaning in.
Yeah.
I'm like...
Haha, just kidding, guys. We are actually going to be releasing the stunning final conclusion of this case series as a special bonus episode later this week. Because it would be really cruel to drag this out for 3 weeks.
Yeah, it would.
I mean, I know people do it. I'm not going to name any names, but just a reminder, though, if you're not already subscribing on Patreon, head over there so you can get access to additional content and binge the hell out of cases like this. Because if you are a Patreon, you have episode 3 right now.
Aww.
And the interview with Brian.
Oh, yeah.
And all kinds of other creepy shit.
Have a creepy ass day. See you next Tuesday. Or sooner.
So for all of you that are listening, if you have any true crime or paranormal stories that you want us to share, maybe with the whole Pacific Northwest.
Yes, we would love to read them on the pod.
Yes, we will read them out loud.
Not just in our heads.
Yes. They don't have to be from the Pacific Northwest if you would like to share. Email us at pnwhauntsandhomicides@gmail.com. It's all spelled out, no special characters. Super duper easy peasy.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Same thing as the email at pnwhauntsandhomicides, all spelled out, no special characters. Please also rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening to, and check out our stories on social media because our meme game is hot.
Agreed.
And if you agree, like Caitlin, you can also find us on Patreon and support the show.
Bitchin'. It was briefly discussed, perhaps sending someone outside the Weyerhaeuser family in his stead. Someone outside the Steed.
His noble
His
steed.
noble steed. And I read it in my head as stead, and then I still said steed.